Okay, let's get started. So, hi, my name is James Dailey, and with me is Adam Saghy. Welcome, everybody. So today we'll talk about how we leverage community contribution and expertise in Fineract. We'll touch on both the past and the present, and we'll explore new features and ideas shaping the road to 2026. This is the first in a series of webinars that I hope to hold. And today we're going to discuss these topics from an expert perspective, but this is not an official Apache content. So keep in mind what we're talking about is from the perspective of experts and our company. We're going to leave time for questions at the end. So we hope that you will bring your questions and put them into the Q&A concept down below. And again, I'm James Dailey. I'm the CEO of BaaSFlow. And joining me today is Adam Saghy. He's a member of the BaaSFlow team. He's also on the Apache Fineract PMC, as am I. He's a tech advisor, and he's also founded Fineract Academy. So welcome, Adam.
Hi, James. Welcome, everyone. And James, thank you for inviting me, first of all. Let me kick off this conversation with a very simple, but I believe it's an important question that I would like you to answer first.
Turning the table on me already, I see.
Yeah, something like that. So you are a member of the Fineract PMC, as you mentioned, and you are the founder of the original project. So you have a strong connection to the project. However, from a vendor's perspective, can you explain why Fineract? Why did your company choose to build on top of Fineract and work with its contributor community?
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, why would I not build on Fineract? I was the founder of the original project, and I believe that open source is one of the most important business innovations, maybe of the past 30 years. I mean, it's truly a breakthrough in how things can be built together. In the old days, you would have a lot of inability to share what you've learned in one job with the next places you worked. And that was very inefficient. And open source really helps to break that down. It's created tremendous value in other parts of the internet economy. So we're building a better business model. We're building better financial systems. And this will enable financial inclusion by disrupting the models of providing core banking software. It powers innovation and it lowers the cost of ownership. So these are the attributes of why open source, but also why Fineract. I mean, it's sort of a fundamental question for us. So today we know it's used everywhere, in lots of different countries. In fact, I know we have representatives here from a variety of different countries around the globe. So it's in the hundreds of installations, maybe thousands, of financial institutions globally. So at BaaSFlow, again, we want to sort of be clear that we're not responsible for all of those deployments because they're done by other people. But at BaaSFlow, one of our customers is serving the buy now, pay later market, very big global market. And on Black Friday, so not to bury the lead here, but early indications are that there were no issues across many different types of products that are running entirely on Fineract as the backend system. And I can't share the specific numbers, but let's say that it was over 2 million loans in a 24-hour period. And that's a pretty big number, loans created in a 24-hour period. So bottom line, we know that this scales from those very smallest institutions that have 3 or 4 loans per day to the very largest institutions, which are able to do 2 million loans in a day. So that scalability, it's not just that it can be high performant, but that it can actually be down at the useful end of the range. And it's only going to get better from here. So Adam, thanks for that question. Let me get back to you. as a contributor. In fact, I want to recognize you as, I believe, the top contributor in the past few years, one of the most prolific committers. Why Fineract? I mean, you could work anywhere. So besides the paycheck, what keeps you investing your time in Fineract? What keeps you engaged?
Well, I've always been interested in fintech and started to work in it in 2017. At first as an at an incumbent bank, but later I've got a new project where I got involved with Fineract, and I believe it was in early 2020. So we were building on top of Fineract, but it was a fork, and we weren't really contributing back to the main project. But still, I learned a lot about Fineract, what it can do, what it could not can do, and a few years later, I just got the chance, and we just started to contributing back to the project. So the project and the client was open for not just open. They really wanted to help and support the main project, the community version. They see the value on it, and together with a group of experts. That's where my real journey began with Fineract. As my contributions got more steadily, I I was invited to become a committer first, then later a PMC, that's the Project Management Committee uh, of the Apache Fineract. And that was the point. I was not just a developer who's writing code anymore. It was more about helping shape the long-term roadmap with others. Over time, with each bug fix, each these features, each of these decisions, I just got more and more committed. You know, people were using these features. I helped to build them. Clients gave positive feedback, and seeing that impact made me proud. So Fineract has taught me a lot, but I it was through contribution that I truly became part of the project.
Yep, yep. And I personally believe the contribution is it's necessary and essential for the business angle as well. It's not only important to build on top of, which is what we're doing with our components, so we're layering on top other functionality, but also to contribute back to that core to strengthen our position among competitive solutions. So I encourage people at the company to contribute back. Like that's our policy. That's how we approach it. And it also means that we end up working closely with the top contributors, and that gives us an edge in a sense. And because it gives us access to experts like you. So again, thanks for being part of the journey. I also think I should talk a little bit about why we see this as strategic. So if you are forking the project, you're suddenly at that point responsible for all of the code, all of the history of the code, all the maintenance, all of the improvements. So really the sense of community that I believe is important is developing where you're sharing in the software development lifecycle. It's essential that we remain upstream. So that's why we do it. Moreover, we are developing on top of what's there. Fineract is the basis, but then we have built other subsystems and components that enhance onboarding, that enhance connections to payments, that do reporting, that do document generation, that do signing of documents, that do integration paths for AML, anti-money laundering checks, for fraud detection. So we're doing all of these other things outside of the core project, which is how a lot of open source projects work, right? So you have a core and then people build on top of it. And it's those value added services and features that really give you your footprint in the market. And all of these things matter to our customers. And so again, what we're trying to do is to lead by example, contribute back to the community, or have our folks contribute back to the community, to the software development. So, um, yeah, I think I'll stop there. Um, what's next, Adam? You're the one now
Yeah.
asking questions.
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So James, like I mentioned earlier, you are the founder of this open source project that ultimately became Apache Fineract. But it would be interesting to look at how things got started. So where they stand now, what might come next. So just looking back, how has the landing changed since those early days?
Uh, well, it's uh, it's an interesting origin story. So, uh, back in 2001, I was at Grameen Foundation and visiting microfinance organizations around the world. Grameen Bank was sort of our mothership, if you will. Uh, Grameen Bank and Mohammed Yunus won the Nobel Peace Prize a few years later. But what I saw in those visits was a lack of good banking software. I mean, people were really struggling with tracking things and generating portfolio at risk calculations and dashboards. And so we were tasked with trying to come up with something that would help the growth and help the efficiency. So I came up with this idea of let's make it open source. Let's create something that's open source. And I gave it the name Mifos. And we designed it to be a general purpose core banking system for small operations. It had a very strong emphasis on term loans, both group lending and individual lending, because we had both models. It was kind of a bank in a box. So the idea is that you could easily deploy it. And there were some key innovations that we put forward, which in hindsight look more wise maybe than we knew at the time. The first one was that we wanted it to be cloud and mobile oriented. So we didn't want a federated system with computers under desks. And we wanted it to be connected to mobiles. And it was very early in those discussions, so we called it other things. And that it would be API driven. So we would have API connections between the front end, the back end, and various components in the back end. And most importantly, it would be open source. And we would gather requirements globally, and we would share requirements, and we would share development. So many of those things remain the same today. So to cut this long story short, the software has been refactored many times. It's a Spring Boot application now. It's been redesigned. Multiple features have been added, especially in the area of loan configuration. And I want to get to that here. In particular, the area we call progressive loan products, because that's where we see a more important set of flexibility around loan repayment and life cycle management of the loans. So, yeah, I think that's.
Yes, thank you very much. So it gives a good insight about what was your idea about it. But I guess we can just jump on those features.
Sure. Sure. Let's discuss some of the important ones. For example, I know that you worked on the business date handling, and this is something I think we want to share with folks.
Yeah. So it's a simple, but I must say it's a really important functionality that just got introduced. Before we introduced business data handling, Fineract clients were tied to a physical calendar, which meant the business day always ended at midnight. Now, thanks to the logical date handling, it can end whenever the business wants, whenever the business requires it. It can be dynamically changed by a job. It can be changed by API. It can react and reflect on the needs. So the goal was to making it flexible, customizable to the needs, but still pretty pretty easy to work with, a basic functionality that we can build on top of it.
Yep. Yep. Um, well, and this relates to the original design of, and requirements and data model that I created for Mifos, which eventually became the Fineract core. There would be a close of day at 5 p.m. The bank would close, the tellers would go home, the field officers would be done, and so there was no more processing until the morning, and so you'd be able to do batch processing overnight. And actually, that was normal across a lot of banking, right? I mean, credit cards and ATMs sort of came in, but they were not yet available in those places, and so it was very normal to close at 5 and open at 8, and so. Yeah, so I think that that's how that relates to why that was created originally, and now why that's an important change. And the second part of this is this close of business day job, right? And so because we already had that there, but now you've got a different business date. So say more about how those two interact.
Yes, so now we have a system that supports the business day concept, and we can build on top of it. So banks, fintechs, whoever is the final client now, thanks to this, can operate continuously 24 per 7, 365 days a year, and do these end of day jobs or close of a business processes at any time, with the ability to calculate across even multiple business dates if needed. So we introduced this process, starting with the loans. That was the first target we built around it. So whenever it runs these operations, which we call business steps, is a set of order of action, a process to be executed on each loan in a particular order. And once it's finished, that's when we are calling the business day is closed for that specific loan. There are some built-in business steps like periodic accrual handlings, calculating the periodic accruals, creating those income recognitions, or due date notification, trigger an event, which we will talk hopefully a little bit later to talk about, trigger these kind of events, or create an overdue charge in case there is a past due period, or any other things that might be useful. And this was an initial set of business steps. However, also we have the capability also add additional business steps, introduce new ones, or even remove these built-in ones. It can be customized, and this customization makes it flexible. The business can define their own requirements. With the ordering, they can ensure the processes are executed in the wanted order on each loan, which gives us the consistency across each loan. And I believe this is a fundamental building block for the modern system.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely essential. So when you think about, going from a close of business at 5 and opening at 8 to a 24 by 365 business model, the ability to do close of business relies on a business date concept. And then the ability to stack one on top of each other, these rule sets, really puts the system into the modern frame of a banking system. But it also made a big difference in terms of performance too. So why don't you say a little bit about that?
Yes, yes, yes. So instead of these long-running centralized jobs, what originally had in Fineract, one instance had a job. That job was picking up all the loans and running in one shot all these
And
steps.
locking the records, right? And locking the records when we're doing that, right? Yep.
Yeah, yes, yes. So instead of that, now these processes can run in a distributed way across multiple instances. Again, one step closer for achieving a so-called no downtime operations.
Yep.
Having different targeted Fineract instance types for normal operations and for this so-called end-of-day job executions the resource management of Fineract is also became much easier. If there are a few customers to be served during the daytime, but there are a great number of loans to be processed at the end of day, the one can just scale up a bunch of workers that processes these loans, and once they finish, they can just scale it down. And also, there are no impact on real-time operations since these are running on different instances. So it's opened up a great. It's opened up the not just executing in consistent way these laws and processing them, but resource management of Fineract can be planned much better, and operations became more straightforward, hopefully, and more
Yep.
performant, since we
Yep.
are talking about performance.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important to highlight. So as a result, from our experience, we see fintechs using Fineract as a system of record, um, but it may be just one part of a broader system. So just like it's one part of our overall solution, when it's deployed at a fintech, we might see it as one piece of a larger setup. So on the one hand, you have APIs, right? So you can address the application through APIs. But on the other side, like how do you sort of handle some things? So you can talk a little bit now about the external event handling, the business event handling, and how that relates to fitting it within a larger context of systems.
Yes, sure. So external business events were introduced to allow in Fineract asynchronous distributed communication between the Fineract and other systems. Let me just give you an example that explains it much better. So when a repayment is made and the balance change occurred, other system can be notified, like sending a message to a customer on the due date of a repayment period, or a repayment got processed and got a notification and another component which will notify the customer or the merchant about the changes in the loan. The one component does not need to call Fineract via APIs. It can be notified through these events. And the idea was this functionality will provide a flexible event-based way for systems to stay connected and to open up many new possibilities for building on top of Fineract. As you might see it already, many of these changes that were introduced in the last couple of years were about to introducing not just new functionalities, but open up the system to be to the one, usually the vendors can build on top of Fineract, work together with Fineract core functionalities, but extending it. And external business event handling is a great example for that.
Yep, yep. Um, so let's talk a little bit about how one of the biggest commitments that the Fineract community made on its roadmap, and this was from 2023 onward, was the introduction of a new loan concept. I've already mentioned it. It's called progressive loan. Um, so it was really designed to meet today's, more modern concept of, and so just, I guess, just in your words, go and explain what that is.
Okay, so yes, progressive loan handling is one of is a major new type of loan that just got introduced in Fineract to address this new real need in modern lending. Let me explain it via an example. So, what Fineract had traditionally, the loans were based on a fixed disbursement plan with the interest and EMI calculated from day one, even for the funds that had not been disbursed yet. It was pre-planned. There was an expectation it would happen, but it was not done yet. And that model doesn't work well for our flexible lending, like buy now pay later, or cases where the loan disbursement happens over time. So On the screen right now, you are seeing a cumulative loan. That's how we called the original legacy loan product that we had. And the example here was the borrower takes a loan of $500, but they are doing it in two parts, two tranches. 250 was disbursed to the customer immediately, and the second disbursement, the remaining 250, was happening 2 months later at an interest rate of 11. That's just for to make it more interesting, these use case. As you can see, uh, the equal monthly installment, which is the calculated amount to be paid on each period, is matching on the first, the second, the third, on the fourth. So what it was calculated is the system calculated $500 is borrowed, but the disbursement happens in two parts. But anyway, from day one, the customer needs is about to be paid the interest based on the total disbursed amount, even if it happens after. And the equal monthly installments are the same. It doesn't matter when this disbursement happens, it will happen eventually. But from day one, we are calculating it. Uh, in the other hand, the progressive loan repayment handling that we introduced, this new one, is more react like in a progressive manner. The very same example, 250 was disbursed to the customer. So the repayment plan was calculated based on only the disbursed amount. In that case, the equal monthly installment to be paid was just $43.01, and the interest that the customer needs to pay is only on the already disbursed amount. And later, if an additional 250 was disbursed, that's the moment from that day onward, the current and the new and the future installments EMI just got recalculated based on these new situations where the outstanding loan balance got increased. And that's the moment where the interest also increases, because now it's not just calculated based on the 250 minus the already paid back amounts, but this additional 250 that was added. It's more fit for loan types like buy now, pay later, where this loan disbursement happens over time, but it's not written in stone when it happens. It's not pre-planned. We don't have or need for an exact date when this disbursement will occur. When it's occur, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it's also good to point out that it's not just buy now, pay later, it's any term loan, right? So it's any
Oh, yes, yes.
multi-disbursement term loan where you might have a construction loan, you might have a small business loan, you might have inventory financing, like there's a variety of other use cases. But the flexibility here is what's the key thing to point out. So Adam, I know
Yes, exactly.
we have some more questions we need to get to. So
Yes,
let's
yes,
talk a
you're
little
right.
bit about how the um, backdated transactions, chronological processing, how reverse replay works. Just mention a few things there about how that has shifted in our core system.
Yes, yes, yes. So in really short, what we had with the cumulative was the boundary, the real location context was the repayment period itself. So if we had a repayment and after that repayment we had a new charges added, it had a retroactive effect since the system was checking repayment period wise, what's the allocation rule, and enforce it. It was reverse replaying that original repayment. Whereas with this progressive loan schedule handling, we are building a timeline, and that timeline is enforced for any monetary activities. So the very same scenario in really short, if we had a repayment, that repayment was paying based on the repayment plan according at that time when the repayment got processed. And even if a charge was added after this repayment, the original repayment was not reverse replayed. The charge happened later, so it has no effect on it. So this with the progressive loan handling, we are introducing this chronological timeline that we are maintaining and enforcing and minimalizing the reverse replay situations and trying to avoid this retroactive effect. Something was processed and now it's reprocessed because something happened later and now it has effect on the earlier one. So hopefully it gives some insight what additional improvement we were making for progressive loan and how we are trying to make more consistent and reliable the system for this new kind of loan.
Yep, yep. Um, so the flexible loan concepts that we've talked about. So backdated transactions, charges are allowed, but
Yep.
they're reprocessed in the right order, right? And so, when we're replaying the payments that come in, so if there's been a correction by the customer, no, actually I made that payment, or a payment actually didn't get settled, things like that, um, allow the system to be more flexible for a variety of different use cases. And really, we find this to be universal. So this, in a sense, travels well around the world because these kinds of reprocessing and chronological ordering is important. But it's
Yeah.
just the first part of the story, right? So we have to also track, overdue payments and delinquency. So talk about that.
Yes, yes. So delinquency management is another newly introduced feature. So which was for help tracking these missed payments by classifying loans based on the predefined delinquency ranges. These are not hard coded. Business can define as many different strategies and ranges as they want. The ultimately the goal was to offer a simple but straightforward way to identify and retrieve these delinquency loans according these ranges, monitor the status over time, and again, to build on top of it. So make it easier to build on top by including in reports or writing new business steps end of day which are monitoring these loans, and in case something changed like delinquency range changed, it was overdue by 30 days or something like that, um, get notified and build custom solutions on top of it. So kind of that was the idea, and the thing is there were so many new functionalities added in the last couple of years. I could go for hours, but unfortunately we need to
Yeah,
time box it.
our
So
people, yeah, yeah, they're going to lose patience with this here. So
absolutely. So alongside with these new in-demand features, so James, where do you think the focus should be when working with clients? So what are you focusing on 2026 to not just talk about the present, but a little bit about the future ahead of us?
yeah, well, I'm not going to reveal any of the secrets, but it's obviously important to meet our clients' needs. Um, and but I'll also say that at a base level, it's equally important for our clients and as a vendor to have a reliable system, a fully regression tested system where the industry expects 6 9 availability. Um, and that's what leads to client satisfaction, the ability to keep your system up and running. Um, so it was great to see the new, end-to-end test framework that's recently been added. So I guess I'll turn it back to you and say, so tell us more about how that came about or what that's about.
Oh yes, I quite love this new testing framework for many
Oh,
reasons.
look, you have you
One,
have examples here for me.
yeah,
Thank you.
yes, yes. So So this new testing framework was it's a new Gherkin-based test framework. It might not test too much, but I will explain it in a little bit. So this was built so testers and business analysts can write test scenarios without the need to code. So Gherkin uses a plain language to describe, as you can see on the on my screen sharing. You can describe what the system should do in a way that's easy to read, easy to digest, and like how you like the same way as you are writing a requirement document, or like you are explaining it in a conversation, what should happen and what outcome I'm expecting to get. So the idea was to make this testing easier for non-developers, help teams to work better together, make sure the system behaves the way the business expected. So I think it's a great feature, first of all, and I think we will see it used a lot in 2026, hopefully. And I'm really anticipated to see as people start using this new test framework, and we will get more and more test cases which are closer to the business needs and farther to require the developer to write. Hard to maintain, hard to read test
Right,
cases.
right, right.
Considering the Fineract roadmap, James, let me just ask you one more thing. So the features, what are the features you most anticipate in 2026?
Um, so, we don't control that, but what I see is a need to adjust the software to make it more end user customer friendly. So lenders, standing between, the system and the people getting the loans, they need the ability to restructure loans and reschedule them. This brings in more of a lender orientation. So the lender wants to have that flexibility because that's how they want to treat their customer. So if there's a natural disaster, you have to do not just an interest vacation, but you might need to completely reschedule. So I believe that a lot more flexibility in those areas need to be added, and that'll be good for meeting the needs of lots of different kinds of lenders, embedded lending, community lending, small banks, buy now, pay later, whatever. There's going to be that sort of flexibility is going to be needed. I think in the interest of time, we might come back to some of this that I have here in my notes, but I want to talk about sort of my broader vision for 2026, if you don't mind. So,
Yeah, please.
and then I do want people to get ready with their questions. So our focus as a company is in building scalable core banking functionality, including this fully featured lending system of record. It's a unique value proposition because it's modern tech, it's cloud native, and it's open source. So we provide the services and additional plugins that I want to talk about in future webinars. But today I want to turn it back to a few key things that I think Fineract needs as a software project. What I would like to see is more tests, more documentation, more efforts to fill in the completeness of features. So getting to feature complete on some things that have been sort of sitting there. What we really want as a vendor is stability. We want security fixes. And because of who we are and how we are involved, we're in a great position to contribute to those things. I think this has been discussed elsewhere, but I would like to see better automation of the release cycle. Test coverage, again, to help that release cycle. Better support for different front-end interfaces. So vendors might want to put a different front end on top of the Fineract system. And that implies better API endpoint documentation, auto generation of the Swagger files. And then there's some cleanup areas for maintenance. I would also say that as a vendor, we could benefit from other vendors being more involved in encouraging their folks to also stay upstream, to contribute improvements. some of the things I mentioned, maybe other things. And that, of course, means that the project has to be more approachable. So we need more engagement across the community, more contributors, more collaboration. But putting on my commercial hat again, when you choose a Fineract vendor, you should be asking what level of engagement do they have in the project? What's the amount of contributions are showing up from their people in the pull releases? And, I think we actively lead on that front. So we're a leader in that, and I expect that to remain the case. What do you think?
Well, yeah. So I definitely agree with you. There are a need for contributors, definitely. So you, if you are genuinely interested in Fineract and you want to help it make it better, that's the best way to do so. Fineract is a welcoming community. Hopefully, I can say that, and also it offers a great opportunity. If you are interested in fintech, like I was, you can build a real career experience by actually contributing back to something meaningful. Usually the structure that works best is people start contributing at the level of their current expertise and start to grow from there. That's exactly what I did, so how I started, and for me that was the most efficient approach
Yeah. So
to achieve that. Yeah.
what do you think are the good first steps for new contributors?
Well, depending on someone's experience, there are good first steps, like writing tests, refactoring small parts of the code, improving documentations. That helps to understand a little bit better what Fineract is about, what is capable about it. Once you have that. Um, Once you have that, you can move from there. But I think the one should either start with observe, learn, and get involved gradually, or they need to focus on just a small subset or small part of the system
Excellent.
and try to build on top of
Yeah,
that.
and go ahead and plug your thing here now. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's exactly why I created Fineract Academy, where I'm sharing articles, mostly targeting developers, but explaining things from a technical point of view, how to run Fineract, how to configure it, how to start working on it, and hopefully you will find it useful and important. But not just talk about that. There is a story. It's called First Steps on our Fineract project. It's part of the official Apache Jira, where you can find a great many of links and content and steps and all the things you should be aware and can help you to efficiently become a contributor by following this and understanding the software itself.
Yep. Yep. Um, I want to remind people that just reviewing code is is an important thing. The more eyes we have on the code, the better, right? It gives you an opportunity to engage in the project, to see other contributors, and it's a form of contribution in itself. So um, that's a great way for people to just get started. So I hope there's some questions. If not, we've got some other content we can get to. But before we do those Q&As, Adam, sort of you get the last word on some. At this point, what's your thought for the future of this project?
I will try to make it short. So I think Fineract has a huge growth potential if with a strong community of experts. And I'm not only talking about developers, but testers, business analysts. All of them should be represented and needed for a healthy community. So with their help, Fineract can continue evolving and became a key platform for many fintechs. And hopefully, I allow to say that I think we need not only individual contributors, but vendor-led contributions as well, because they are the ones who knows what the client needs, what the market needs. So hopefully a healthy balance alongside that would could lead to great things, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's important that I add something here, which is that in the Apache model, it's vendor neutral, right? So no one vendor controls the project, and vendors themselves do not contribute to the project. So unlike other open source projects, we're vendor neutral. But vendors can say to their people, we want you to be involved. We want you to be upstream. We don't want to be on a fork. We want to be fully, everybody should be a fully good member in standing of the community. And that's what we've done. And so we invite other folks to join in that spirit. And so if there's some questions, now would be the time for them. So the question is there a need to contribute soft things, for example, knowledge around the day-to-day operations of a fintech? I mean, I would say yes. I mean, some of those things can go into conversations about gap analysis, right? And so having some area of this is how a typical day-to-day operation of a fintech works, that could be a useful thing. It could also be done outside of the project, and then sort of inputs, arrive in the form of tickets into the project as well. Let me see the next one. Anu, well, you're welcome. Are the job enhancements, close of business day, job in loans available on savings, fixed and recurring deposit accounts as well? Okay, Adam?
Yeah. So at the time, no, but I know there are some effort or the need or the requirement to make it available for saving products as well. So we are more than welcome any contributions on that. We can help with materials, with knowledge transfer, with all the help to implement it. If someone is feeling the challenge to make it happen. So it was always planned to go to make this support for other products, including the savings deposit, all these things. But we need contributors and involved people to make that happen.
Yep, yep.
So the short answer is not yet.
Yeah, so not yet, but a good area for exploration and for a small group of people who have the expertise to look at what's been done in one area of the code and to use those as libraries or as, calls to those other components so that we're not duplicating things, but we're actually architecting in the right direction. So the second question Anu had was, is there an API to debit a savings account and credit several GLs and vice versa? Oh, this would be like a shared loan. Maybe if you want to say something more about the use case, Anu, I'd be interested. I would say that would not be available out of the box, but I could imagine stringing together a set of APIs where you could do that. So that could be done, maybe not in Fineract today. And I'm not sure we would want to have that level of complexity in Fineract, although it might belong outside, but that's a good discussion point to raise on list and that sort of thing. All right, next question. How does Fineract handle changes that are country specific? For instance, in home countries, loan provisioning is calculated on the principal outstanding while in some other countries it's calculated on principal outstanding plus interest accrued plus fees plus expected future drawdowns, i.e. for revolving credit. Good question, Basi. So I would say that we're going for maximum flexibility and configuration. What you're talking about is the basis of the calculation, and to have interest on top. Well, so first of all, we do not have revolving line of credit in Fineract at this point. It's an area that we would hope somebody can contribute. And so some of these things would relate to revolving line of credit. In fact, I think most of that would be handled by the revolving line of credit concept. So, but Adam, you have a comment on that?
So in my experience, Fineract was started as you mentioned as a generic solution for like a Swift knife. So providing many functionalities, provisional, there is some level of provisional handling in Fineract, but customization-wise or configuration-wise, I'm not fully up to date. But what I've seen in the last couple of years, whenever the modern landing or the today's needs were touching a functionality, the contributors were trying to make it as a basic but customizable functionality to build on top of it. So if there is a need for provisioning for a better customization, I would say that's definitely something that is doable, and it can be reworked to support such need. And Fineract would be more by doing that. And that's kind of the place where I believe when we are talking about contributors, we're not only talking about developers. It's not only something needs to be done and implemented in Fineract. It's more about, as a community, we need to discuss what's the business need that drives this need, and whether it has a place in Fineract, or what would be the best way to implement it to avoid too much country customization, but also allow to do these customizations. And maybe this customization is not just configuration, it's something like overriding an implementation, adding something to the Fineract which does not need to be necessarily part of the community version, but as the Fineract should be capable and allow to create to create new components which are capable to do that. And they can keep it as private if they want. If there is a need and they are happy with it and the community is happy with that, it can be contributed back. So this Swift knife I like this example because you can do a lot with a Swift knife, but you won't cut a tree. For
Yep.
that, you need something more specific.
Yeah, so I think, Basi, again, good question. I would encourage you to bring that to the list. If you want it to be part of a roadmap discussion, then that's where it goes. If you want to develop it outside, there is a way to do that with our module override concept, and that's somewhat documented. So Adam was alluding to the fact that you can do a kind of add deployment replace. So you could have different logic in that drop-in component, which could give you what you need and is a differential for your vendor. So that's something that could be useful to you. And we need to do better, I think, in documenting how that is done as a community. But then, vendors need to also talk about how it is done in their environments. Carlos had another question here, and Carl follow up. So let's ask them both. So answer them both. So how does Fineract differentiate itself from the growing number of commercial cloud native core banking platforms? What is the key advantage of its community-driven model? And then Carl asks a follow-up, how to best teach a Java developer how a financial system and financial industry works. Long-term OFC, which is the OFC needed for them to become a Fineract developer. So I'll, Adam, do you want to take these questions first? And I have an answer, but I wanted to see if you had anything first.
Um, if if you're happy to go with Carlos' answer, in the meantime, I will come up for Carl one because I believe I'm at a good position to answer that one, the last one.
So Fineract and its vendor ecosystem, I think, differentiates itself because it's open source. And if you take a look at the internet technologies that have powered the big seven, right? That's by and large on the basis of open source. Like AWS would not exist without all of the open source tooling that was there from the beginning. Um, Meta, Facebook, whatever, all of these other big innovative social media companies, internet companies, so much is based on open source. If you look, there is research on how open source has powered not just billions, but trillions of dollars in value creation, because what it does is it unlocks innovation. So I believe the same will happen now in these harder to reach industries such as insurance and banking and medical claims processing, things like that, which have started to use open source way in the cloud under the hood, but which are not yet using it sort of more openly. Fineract is a fundamental disruption to the financial industry because our banking system industry because it's open source. So you can gather requirements all around the world. You can figure out what's the thing in common. You can build that. And over time, your total cost of ownership will go down. We also know that you mentioned a few of these new systems, commercial cloud-based systems. Some of them are based on Fineract. In fact, because we are the training material for a lot of AI models, I would suspect that a fair amount of the knowledge that we've put out there is now being used as the basis. So our model is actually the power behind a lot of innovation, and we're a little bit hidden. But I think as we come out of the shadows, people will see that what we're doing is very disruptive and in a very good way. So that's one answer to that. And go ahead because we're out of time. Adam, you get a quick how to best teach a Java developer.
Yeah, so uh, let me just sum it up. So uh, Fineract are following industry good practices usually. So at the moment it does, and for that reason it does not really provide any materials about how finance works. However, as part of the documentation, at least on high level, it is referring on this implicitly. So the answer is the one needs to do their own research and Google for many of these definitions and functionalities that are there, GL accounts, the grand ledger, what it means, a debit or credit based on this grand ledger type, what a debit on an expense account, what does it mean, the accounting, how does it work, all debit must match with all credit on a transaction, the chargeback, the re-aging that was mentioned, repayment plan, all these things. So I mean, this soft material is
So I think
not really there.
yeah. So I want to stop you there. I mean, I do think
Yeah,
that
sorry.
like this is a bigger conversation. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye now.